Yes, we can.
So as all of you know, IEEE has over 148 years. I mean, it's been in existence for more than 148 years and has been instrumental in creating a lot of change that we see in this world. And it's really a wonderful part to be a part of IEEE itself. Um, so it is the world's largest technical professional organization that's dedicated for the advancement of technology. And it's a trusted voice for engineering and computing. In fact, all of you, especially the ones who are in research, would recognize um, this particular institution. And it has over 486,000 members in over 190 countries and 39 technical societies. So pretty much everything that's happening in the world around in the space of engineering has some of its things to thank IEEE for. We also have 189,000 student members and 347 sections that are across 10 geographic regions, and it's probably going to be 11 very soon. IEEE also has 6 million documents in its digital library and active portfolio of standards. So there is a lot of work that happens and also 1,093 projects that are under development. Um, a smaller part of IEEE is IEEE, which is the Women in Engineering, and basically our affinity group attempts to connect, support, and inspire females worldwide and facilitate their recruitment and retention. We have a distinguished network that is over 25 years old, and in fact 27 and counting, with over 40,000 members, and the numbers keep increasing. We have over 1,000 groups serving local communities as well. Our mission is, of course, to connect and support and inspire women and girls to work in STEM-related fields. And we also have notable conferences, V-Day celebrations, family cares program, and so on. So if any of you are not members of IEEE, I also urge you to be a part of IEEE. And if you're not a part of V, I also urge you to become members at IEEE as well. So this series was launched by the Industry and Entrepreneurship Subcommittee of the V Committee. It's chaired by me, and my co-chairs are Samar and Lee. Both of them, I mean, so again, we are across the globe, and we are ably supported and we are ably guided by Vinny, who is the present chair. And we also have a wonderful staff who pretty much do everything behind the scenes. They are the ones who make these things happen. So shout out to Prachi as well, who has been instrumental in putting all of this together. So we also have Alicia and Faith who support us through our initiatives. So Industry and Entrepreneurship Subcommittee was created mainly because we want to increase industry engagement through events, mentoring programs, and programs even in industry venues. We want to create the industry pool and portal. In fact, we have recently launched our IEEE Experts Network. In fact, Kala is one of the experts who is on the network as well. We also believe in supporting our members to undergo entrepreneurship training and disseminating knowledge about standards development as well. This webinar series was created because we felt there was a need for us to create an opportunity for our industry experts to showcase their expertise and their experience, and to also be, inspire the other younger members on their journeys. So this is the reason why this series was started. And I'll just give a very brief detail about what this series is. It's a unique program, and we have industry leaders and practitioners who share their learnings and experiences. Each session will be about 60 to 90 minutes. It's basically going to be like a masterclass from experts. The format is typically two keynote speakers followed by a fireside chat or a roundtable of experts. And audience, this is open to all. It's open to professionals, students, technophiles, budding entrepreneurs, and even academics. I'll skip this. The topic today is translational research to entrepreneurial ventures. Just a very quick intro to what is translational research. It's a subset of applied research as opposed to fundamental research. Basically, this is about converting the science to technology. So examples could be bench to bedside or concepts to a classroom practice or basic research to treatment protocols. And why this is important is because it is that aspect which brings both industry, academia, and society together. And we have two excellent experts who are going to be telling us more about their translational research journeys as well. So I'll also introduce them right now. So the first one, I know the topic was translational research, Ramya, but I really like that statement where you said to infinity and beyond. So Ramya is the founder director of Nimaya Innovations. I interacted with her during one of our industry conclaves, and I was, frankly speaking, blown away by her enthusiasm and passion for the work she's doing. She did her PhD on creating tools for children with special needs. She's a resilient entrepreneur, has overcome several challenges. She's an award-winning leader and an academic and researcher. So she wears multiple hats, and maybe we'll first start with listening to her, and then I'll introduce Kala as well afterwards. So over to you, Ramya.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's always lovely to be part of this community, and I get to every time I get to meet somebody new, talk to somebody new, and always love sharing what experiences that we've been through. So thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. So I am very, very happy to be here. And today I absolutely loved this translational research to startups or entrepreneurship. And that is the exact journey that I have followed as well. That has been my journey since 2013 until now. And I am loving, however, different challenges are there. I absolutely love what I've been doing. So let me quickly share my screen so that I can run through a very small PPT. Please do let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect, thank you. So, hi, I'm Dr. Ramya from Nimaya Innovations. I think, introduction is already given. So the first thing that everybody asks me is, what does Nimaya do, right? And we tell them that we develop robotics and mechatronic systems for children with disability. So we work with children with autism, cerebral palsy, mental retardation, anybody who requires a psychomotor skill training. So that's what predominantly our work is. So the moment I introduce what we do as a company, the next question is, oh, how did this all start? No, you're in a disability sector. Where are you? Like, from where did this come? So I started doing my PhD in the area of disability. So I started working with, I did my PhD in Shastra University, and we came across, so that's going to be part of the explanation as well. So I think by the start of the year, at the start of first year of my PhD, I knew this was going somewhere. I knew this was a product. One second, sorry. Okay. So I knew this was a product that was meant to change a lot of things. And I knew this was something that could be taken into an entrepreneurship uh, region or, become a startup someday. But the journey is what that taught me a lot of different things. So for that, I am going to start with this. Yeah, one second. Sorry, there was a bit of a glitch. Are you able to see me again?
Yes.
Yes. Is my slide? Yeah. Is my slideshow on?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you. All right. So let me go to where, yeah. So as and when I was doing my research is when I realized that there are a lot of different research that could actually be converted into products. And on some level, it is stopped somewhere on some milestone, or maybe it was dropped as an idea itself before people thought that it could not be applied. So I realized if there is going to be a research and if there is going to be a concept, and if I want to make that into a startup, how will this be put into a framework? So that's when 5 years of my research and my 5 years of entrepreneur background helped me form this city framework. So this is how I'm going to walk through the entire thing. So city, we call it as study, identify, engineer, test, and implement. So I'm telling you, hands down, this helped me perfectly take from a concept to an actual product. So what happened was that's how my entire research even worked. So what happens is the first thing that I wanted to know about, that is the studying part of it, which is of course, as every researcher, we end up doing a lot of literature reviews to figure out where the problem is lying, what is the gap that we require. So I'm going to align the entire city framework to how my journey was followed. So initially, the first thing that we figured out was that right now, by CDC is this thing, 1 in 36 children or 1 in 36 people around the world have been projected to be diagnosed with autism, right? So that is way more than 90 million at this point of time. So when we realized this was happening, I wanted to figure out how I can use my robotics expertise in this area. So once I started working with a lot of different schools, I started researching what are the different ideas that they use and how occupational therapy works for children with autism, how it's going to make a difference. I came across a lot of different studies that showed that robotics as a concept works for children with autism really well, because one of the major thing is a robot is something that can do a certain application repeatedly over a period of time without any change, or without any change in the tone or the modalities or change in any kind of facial expression. This repeated adhering helps the children with autism to actually pick up lot of different skills in a much faster accelerated time frame. So that this was the first part of the study that I figured out. Then comes the part where what so autism is just not one single, it's called as a spectrum, right, for a reason, because they have different changes and different symptoms across the entire set of children. So now what happens is certain set of symptoms for a certain set of children will not be there with the rest of them. So now we can't tailor make every single device, but we can always customize it. So the whole point of me was to figure out what was the gap that was found. So when we went with a little more understanding of it, we realized, of course, like I told you, children with autism are attracted towards robot and robot-like features more than regular human beings, was the first point. Then we realized a lot of different robots have already been used to train children with autism, but they were predominantly for social interaction or for communication or for facial expressions. So one of the biggest issues that the children with autism have is that they have deficits in their psychomotor skills. So psychomotor skills is nothing but your brain is telling you to do something and your body is doing it, and it sends a signal back to your brain telling the entire work is done. So for example, my brain is telling me move your hands like this for some reason, and now my brain knows this is where my hands are located. So with children with autism, the problem is that this entire wiring system is where the issue lies, right? And just like how for a paralytic patient or a stroke patient, if they give repeated physiotherapy, they'll end up gaining their skills back. Similar methodologies to get back that neural system is why a repeated training is required for children with autism, which definitely a robot serves its purpose. So one of the things that we found out, though there were several robots available, psychomotor skills was something that was not concentrated upon. So that's when I found the gap. That is where the identify part comes in, where we found out that the psychomotor part is the one that we need to concentrate on, and what can be done to bridge the gap using robots as a training tool. So that's when the journey genuinely started, where I started focusing on what kind of psychomotor skills can be targeted, right? There's a ocean of psychomotor skills that is needed for children with autism. And the reason that is psychomotor skills are so important is because, see, right now I'm thirsty. I know that I can just take my bottle, hold my bottle. Few seconds later, I want to use a pen. But you can clearly see the way I hold a bottle and the way I hold a pen is completely different. But we are so trained, or we are um, involuntarily we are able to do this, right? It's happens subconsciously. It's not something that we sat and got trained for, right? But with children with autism, they do not understand how the fingers actually articulate. So what happens is they wouldn't even know how to pick up a pen or different grasp to use. So that's when we realized this was one of the basics of the issue that is required, which is where the identification part came in. So, so step one, robots for autism. Step two, we found out that robots can be used for psychomotor skills. Now, the next step is to actually figure out what kind of psychomotor skills are going to be trained using robots and how each of these are going to be designed, right? So that's how each of the city steps moves on. So I worked with more than 75 different schools to figure out what are the different occupational therapy methodologies that they use to train different kinds of grasp, then to figure out what kind of method can Nimaya bring in, right? So as you can see on the screen, this is regular conventional therapy method where the teacher teaches the child the activity, right? And you can also see that there is no reinforcement back from the activity to the child. So what happens is retention and repetition becomes a problem when it comes to this conventional methodology. So we did not change the existing methodology altogether. We just added an active training, active learning part as a Nimaya way. We call it the Nimaya way because what we do here the teacher teaches the activity to the child, and now this activity has some kind of an audio-visual feedback or some kind of a reinforcement that we have fed in. Now, this helps the child not only learn the skill, but also retain it over a long period of time. So, of course, later on, you will see how this is where the research was continuing. Knowing this, we decided we are going to concentrate on different grasps as the skill, and then we would start off with uh, helping us develop the devices. That's where the engineering part comes in. So we are very clear that we are going to develop robots to train children with autism, to train them in different psychomotor skills. So then we started identifying and figuring out what kind of robots can be used, in which way are they supposed to be trained, how can a prototype be developed. So following the identification part, we have the engineering part where on the screen is the first prototypes that I created as part of my PhD. So we in Nimaya believe, at least in PhD, we completely believed in figuring out the most frugal way to get a prototype up and running, just so to see how it's going to work. So what you see on a screen was off-the-shelf bot that we had, and the wooden plank was basically some random plank that was there at my house. So I decided, okay, why not put this together and see if this entire system is going to work? And this is just a regular arcade joystick. But what you see on the screen are just pure prototypes, right? But that was the first step in engineering part. So let me just give you a quick understanding of what the device actually does. Uh, I'm just going to give an understanding of one device, and then we can always, I know we are short for time as well. So in this case, what happens is the first device helps the children to understand different directions like up, down, right, left, eye-hand coordination, palmar grasp, and all of this is done using the first board. So here you see the pink cube on the screen. That is basically the joystick gripper, where the child is going to hold the gripper, move it up, down, and right and left. And this gives the child an understanding and the learning of the concept of directions. So similarly, each and every one of the devices that you see on screen was prototyped for a particular application. So for example, the door device was obviously to teach them how to open a door, close a door, how to open it using right hand, how to close it using left hand, bilateral coordination, all of this was done. And the device, the shirt device, of course, it's quite self-explanatory. This was to help them understand how to put on a shirt, how to get the pincer grasp, and all of that was done. I'm not going deep into what each of the devices do. I'm just running through how this research helped in creating the prototype. So that's when the testing part came in. So what we did was, as from Shastra, we collaborated with several special educators across the country. We worked with people in Bangalore, in Tanjavur, in Tiruchi, in Chennai, in Mumbai, and we used to take each of these devices and have a proper uh, target and the control testing, pilot testing that was run. So here I will quickly just share. Yeah. Um, yes. So to figure out if our devices are working, we had a pre-assessment, then we did the training, and then we had the post-assessment as well. So I'm going to quickly take a pause here to run a 30-second video for you to get an understanding of what exactly our device do. I hope it's clear on the screen, the video.
Yes, it is.
All right. So I'm not sure if the audio was audible through this thing because I don't know if I enabled it correctly. But we've got the subtitles running. So the whole point of this was that in matter of 7 to 10 days, this child who had no idea what a door was or how to open or close a door was able to open and close, not just understand the concept of door, but also understand bilateral coordination, understand the difference between right and left hand. And all of this was seen in matter of tops 10 days in case of uh, this kid. So that was the difference we were able to see. And yeah. So when we did a pre-assessment, post-assessment, of course, just to see how much it has improved, we realized that there was a huge improvement in pretty much every single skill that the device was developed. But the genuine point of it is the reason that Nemea was able to become a startup was because I had this level of background that was there, this level of backup data that clearly proved the system. That's where the researchers came in. Because 5 years of work in this area that we've put into working with more than 75 to 100 children across the country. Right now, we work with more than 1,000 of them. But at that point of time, during research, we worked with more close to 100 children in a proper control and target group scenario, having the exact same protocol and testing. But that helped us the most when we had to approach any institution to see if they would use our devices. And one of the reasons that is obviously important is if it's just a random consumer good, so much of research may not be required, not for every single product, but when it is going to be a proper training system, especially for children with disabilities, this level of backing and substantial data was absolutely important. And that is genuinely, I would tell you, was one of the biggest things that helped us break the ice when we started entering into the market. Now, I'll tell you how all of this research turned into a product. So as part of the research, we figured out our devices accelerated the rate of learning by more than 60% when compared to any other therapy system. So the moment I was able to see these differences and the moment I saw that the parents were responding quite well is when I realized, okay, it's time that, you know what, Nemea like has to be born. These devices should be converted into a startup and it shouldn't go to waste. So that's when the implement part comes in, right? So what do? We have a prototype. Now, a prototype is not a saleable product, of course. So now this prototype has to be converted into a proper product. So that's when a lot of engineering was done. And what you're seeing on the screen is the actual product that exists right now. So what you see here on the right bottom is the skill training unit. That is where the child comes in contact with, right? And this one is the trainer interface unit where the therapist comes in contact with. So one of the things that I realized throughout those 4 or 5 years was that one of the hardest things that the therapist found was handling the amount of data that they had. They are able to train the children well, but nobody is equipped well enough to sit and log in every single trial, right? I was able to do that because that was my job, that was my PhD. But you cannot expect a trainer to do this for um, how many of the children that they are going to train. For example, for each of the child at the end of my PhD, there were close to 100 trial sheets just for one child. So I was already handling 1,000 more papers, and it was impossible to handle it. So that's when we realized if you're going to productize it, we need to add in a concept or bring in a phenomena where it is going to be easier on the therapist as well. So that is where this training interface unit came into picture. So this training interface unit is nothing but a display where there are enough sensors in the training interface unit and the skill training unit. And what these sensors do is they automatically collect the data that is required as and when the child is training and pushes it to the cloud. So that's where we used IoT, and we run different algorithms, AI algorithms in the cloud itself, and give you the progress graph of the child right on this display. So we were able to start showing parents improvement day wise, not just anything else. Even day wise, we were able to show them improvement when it came to their children training, no, their training. So the skill training unit, the trainer interface unit have both, they have their own set of microcontrollers involved. They have their own set of sensors, and all of these sensors pick up the data, push it to the cloud. We do all the detailing in the cloud, and then it comes back in any user interface that is required, which can be both viewed by the parents and by the teachers, right? So this helped us ease out the amount of load that was on the teachers as well. So what you are seeing right now are the different skill training units that have been productized. So I will just wait here for a second and I will move over to the next slide to show how the prototype became a product. So now you can see how the initial prototypes were and how they became a product. And of course, there is a reason behind the construction being a certain way, black being the background and all, but that's a completely technical discussion for another day. So now the same device, which was helping a child understand how to open and close a door, to understand difference between right and left, were completely productized. And that is when we were able to take it to the market and sign up MOUs, start working with special schools and all of it. So yeah, I think that's almost my time, right? Do I still have time, or we can always continue with the fireside chat?
Yeah, I think we'll continue during the fireside chat. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where, just to summarize the whole thing, study, understand the actual concept that you're going to work with. What are its flaws? What is the requirement? Why is it needed? Right? And then, of course, get to know every single competitor in the world that you can to figure out how your USP can be changed, how your product can be different than everybody else. What is that one thing that nobody else is offering? Identify and try to bridge the gap that does not exist, and then engineer that to a prototype, test it, and then you make it a product. So when you have a complete end-to-end system done this way, the ways to fail reduces big time, to be very, very honest, because your systems work. There is a reason why you want to do this. And that journey itself will teach you much more than any PhD can give you. That is the genuine concept of it. PhD all by itself is a separate journey, but you trying to use that idea and making that an entire life, making that into a product, making that into a concept, and making sure that people start using it is altogether a completely different journey. And the one thing that I always would say is lot of people can solve lot of different problems, right? Consumer goods dime a dozen, but not many people take interest in solving a real time issue, an actual issue. So I always tell people whenever they come over and ask me, do you think should I do PhD? I said, do PhD, but do it in an area where you actually know this is going to make a change, right? Because that makes life so much more interesting. I think Kumudini ma'am knows a little bit of my history as to how my PhD was very challenging, but genuinely, the only reason I was able to stick to it, and then despite of coming over the challenges and trying to redo my PhD and all of that, it happened only because I loved the area I was working in. I knew this was going to make a change and I did not want to give up on it. So always pick an idea you know that you're going to love because you know that it's going to change. That is something that I always say, always emphasize. With that, I think I would love to uh, wrap my talk, and we'll wait for Kalapriya ma'am to speak.
Thank you so much. So this was really great. We will be getting to the questions very soon. Just a minute. So thank you so much, Ramya. And yes, I mean, I think the methodology that you presented also and the heuristic seems simple, but I know there is a lot of hard work that went behind it. But I really enjoyed the way that you have abstracted it out and created something so simple. So thank you so much. Our next speaker is, this masterclass is also going to be amazing. So Dr. Kalapriya Kannan, again, a very dear friend. We again connected during IEEE. She is the principal architect of Intuit India. She is a master innovator with over 65 patents. Interestingly enough, we did our PhDs from IISc, but I think our paths didn't meet then. She has an expertise in AI and data analytics and automation. She's an ex-IBM and HPE, I guess, right?
That's true.
And advancing AI fairness and cloud solutions. Has gotten the Intuit Technical Excellence Award, is a speaker and reviewer, and we are just excited to have you over, Kala, and we would like to hear more from you. So,
All right. Thank you, Kamandini, for this wonderful introduction. I think I can't ask more of a better introduction than that. And maybe before we start, I would just say a couple of words about my engagement with IEEE as this thing. And thank you so much, Kumudini, for bringing these kind of things, because there's always this need. There's a research part which happens, and there is an industry which operates. They do operate together at certain times, but I think the general people also needs to know that there is a synergy between how the research happens in different domains. So thank you so much for putting in that effort. And as you see, it's not like a very simple thing to bring in all these things to forum. So kudos to you. And I'm extremely proud to share it, the dais today with Ramya, because I think I've always looked at, how people had that courage to basically put in all their efforts in identifying that problem that they can chase and then do it. And before we start, I think I'll just welcome everyone. I think they are coming from different time zones. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever is joining from different parts of the world. So I'm going to start with a slightly different perspective,
there is a noise in the background, Kala. If you can just check on the mic, maybe there is a movement somewhere.
Okay, is that okay now? Or it's still there?
A little bit.
Okay, I don't see anything because it's just a closed room.
I think it's picking up some static but yeah, can you speak, please?
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we are able to hear you, but there's a little bit of static, but I guess you can continue. That's okay.
Okay, let
Thank
me
you.
try.
Yeah, it's
different-
good at our end, so probably it is the static is picking up at your end, but we are good. We hear her clearly.
All right. Yeah, I think I just changed the plug. Maybe it helps. I don't know, but probably if you're able to hear and if it's all right, probably we can get started. All right. So what I thought today is to just step back, and give a perspective of what constitutes the applied research and what constitutes what people call this as the fundamental research, right? Because once you're able to identify these two things and where your heart is set to basically do, none of these things, by the way, are one is bigger than the other one. I think both of them are equally important and equally required for the entire science to move ahead in terms of even using those things. So I just thought it's good thing to start with that, and then what I would do is I'll give you examples of where things have gone and some of the things that I work, and I would touch upon at the end a couple of patents which really has yielded value in terms of how the innovation started and how it actually ended up into the products. Okay, so this is slightly different than the entrepreneur thing because uh, all along it has been, I have been always associated with corporates. So the research and the kind of innovations that happen in the corporate sector directly applies to the corporate thing. So I just thought I'll bring in that perspective and give over here. And I truly respect Ramya's point of view coming from using it on the entrepreneurial route also. So let me start with this thing, right? So this whole thing about applied research is all about, as Ramya said, there is a problem today, and that problem requires a practical solutions. Now, how do I go ahead and do that thing? You could actually find a solution which exists in terms of a technology, but not directly suited for it. So you may want to look at that and bring in how to address that problem, right? So that's what we call as the applied research. On the other side, the fundamental research typically asks this question: hey, in general, how do I improve the world knowledge, or world, how do I move some of the world things, what is happening? In that, it turns out to be more or less like a knowledge problem, right? I want to up my knowledge or bring in something new, and then it actually turns out into more fundamental things that to be produced. Now, an example is over here on the right hand side. I just wanted to take the latest so that people can relate to that thing. That is predominantly, if you see the large language models, what has evolved. The research has started long back. It's not today, right? Even if you go to 1960s, you had the natural language processing as one of those things. And then slowly, as you will see different waves of those. And on the last 8 to 9 years, you would see that these LLMs have become very important, or they have been developed. And very recently, an application of it is a natural language conversations that you do with the bot, right? I mean, literally every department is getting slapped with either one or other personal assistants, which they call that as, which tends to understand you or understand the assistant domain and try to answer those questions, right? So this distinction is slightly different, although there are different theories. Some of them say that, hey, there is strictly no fundamental, there is strictly no applied, and then some people say that thing, yes, there is a strict applied thing, and then there is a strict fundamental thing. But all said and done, we don't need to worry about it. Whatever is your thing, you just choose it and you try to see how you wanted to foster your area of thing. Okay. Now I'll talk about both these things. I think in the applied research, yes, you are actually looking at what is your current problem, how do I solve it. So it could just directly relate to, like, say, for instance, you had a COVID, you knew that there existed certain things called vaccines, but the application of what kind of vaccine, what kind of thing to that thing is prominently an applied research. So you need to look at what kind of strains come here and what kind of vaccines you can develop for it. So it actually addresses an important problem. And as I said, with the basic research, you're going back and looking at, you can also ask this question, hey, how did the universe come, and or how did the simple elements around those things, what are they composed of, and so on and so things, right? But now here is the catch over here. Certain times, when you start with the fundamental research, they always set the directions to something bigger that comes later. You can take any history and look at, either the communication theory that started, or you look at some of the earlier things with the medical sciences. You will see that it starts with fundamentally looking at what are those things that is there, and then eventually it turns out to be an applied kind of a thing. So you would see that the fundamental research has a longer time to do, but it has a long-standing impact in terms of what it can influence and what kind of things can evolve out of it. So while we look at applied thing as an immediate thing, you really need to have a precursor of people spending a lot of time, effort in different things, moving the needle towards how you can actually solve that problems, right? So it's an example over here, which is, the whole concept of the vaccine, right, that started very long back. It's like in the 15th century, people realized that there are strains with opposing things that can actually create some kind of immune system within your body. And eventually, you will see the first vaccine was somewhere created in 1806, which is roughly like about 300 to 400 years it took to basically bring that thing. So it is quite a long time, but now, if you look, you don't need to wait for 200, 300 years. Maybe, the turnaround times nowadays are quite faster because you have support system doing it. So the long hauls are basically setting directions, and the shorter ones are you're trying to see how you can apply those in the current trends, right? Example of the other one is a wheel. Wheel is, I think, the basic innovation that was done. And if you look at today how it has changed, I think everything that we are looking at in the transport sector or in terms of agricultural sector, this the wheel has been and one of those inventions that has impacted it. So essentially, you will see that, hey, why do we want to do this applied research, right? Okay, so the different theories are there. I'm going to give you a couple of theories. A few theories like this. See, when you actually do a fundamental research and you're producing something, you may at that point of time not know what is the application of it, right? Like, say, for instance, one of the examples is this Listerine, which was actually produced at that point of time for surgical things, but later it was actually found that it's actually a good mouth refreshener, right? So you are actually producing something, but you may not really know what exactly it could be used for. So there is a different set of people from different domains could come and look at what has been invented in a certain domain and try to adopt it for those things, right? Similarly, I've given an example of Coca-Cola. When it first came, it was actually used as a relaxer. I mean, basically, using that to you solve your headache problems and things like this. But then later it became like your drink that you basically use it for just social gatherings and just for your thing, right? So similarly, on the right hand side, the pocket that you see in your jeans was actually created to keep a kind of an device like the timer, which was used, and it's also called as a time pockets, right? But later became a style fashion in that sense. So the reason why this basically becomes important is that thing, you may be inventing certain things as a fundamental thing or you're addressing a different domain, but the applied thing really connects to, hey, where is the need and how do I bring that a relationship between what was found and what has to be discovered. So this distinction is important for you also, because when you are basically doing your research, you really don't need to worry about, hey, is this something which is immediately in use, or are you setting a direction towards certain things which might become useful later? Because either ways, you are moving the needle in terms of what you're contributing to the greater cause, right? Because if you're doing in the fundamental thing, there might be a set of people who would come from the applied research and say, hey, I could use this in these applications, or the vice versa. You're looking at applied research, then you probably are using some of those things that are existing in the world that has been invented by somebody and then probably doing it. It could also happen that your applied research is creating a new phenomena. So that's perfectly all right, right? So, but giving that perspective actually would help you in identifying where you wanted to look at, right? Is fundamental thing where your money is, or your applied thing is where the money is? I think that question is very important, and I think the applied research is an example where you may be looking at satisfying the immediate needs of the people, and therefore it is also a good way to look at creating certain revenue for your sustenance of the research too, right? Now there is also this question, when you start a research, right? How do you know whether this research is going to be impactful, right? Like, say, for instance, you join an institute, and there you start with some topic, like, say, for instance, AI, and you started doing understanding what an AI is. Now, how do you know whether it is impactful or not? To be very frank, nobody knows that it's going to be impactful or not. But there are certain traits that if you follow, you may see that it's actually going to lead to some kind of an impact. Like, say, for instance, when you start your thing, you may want to connect to a real world problem, right? Let's say, for instance, you may not want to start with something like, hey, I want to travel to the sun, right? I mean, you could, of course, travel to the sun, but whether it is going to make something relevant in the next 10 years, 15 years, or is it even going to be possible, all those kind of things to do. So certain traits like finding relevancy to the real world problems. You also want to find, is there a demand for that and the stakeholder interest, right? Like you could look at, is there people looking out for such solutions in this thing, including certain customer base, study the customers, whether they want it, and then you could actually relate back to the problems that you're looking at. A clear path to application is required, right? Like as I said, you could start with going to the sun, but is that really going to yield an application that you may want to do, is something which you may want to evaluate. And what is that novelty that you wanted to bring? And the only way to assess whether your thing is novel or innovative is to look at your research and ask that question, hey, is there something that exists today what I'm doing? If it is exist, it's clearly not an innovation path. If it doesn't exist, then it actually is in the path of the innovation, right? So so when people ask, I've always had these questions when people come and say, hey, how do I do impactful research, or how do I do a thing? I think it's a very, very tough question to answer. I think you start with a topic which is making you curious, like, and how do you identify it as curious? I think when you look at the topic and you find that you're asking these questions, hey, why this? Why not this? How did they do this? I think these are all things that is invoking your curiosity to those problems. Start with that, right? And then you will actually, along the journey of doing your research, align those things to some of these traits, like, maybe it's solving a real world problem, or try to find, hey, if I do this, what is the real world problem that it can solve? What are the demands for these things in the market, or what is the application that I can develop out of it? And is it really innovative, or is it something which people have tried in the past and it is not clearly leading to an innovation path? So I think that is where you need to move your needle and try to bring that uniqueness to the problem. And to be even more frank in this thing, I think people who do the PhDs, I think it's a life lesson that you do the first 2 years. You're just going around, spinning around, finding what the problem is, right? And then you go back and forth, thinking of a problem. Then you find that 6 months down the line that this problem is a well addressed problem. Then you go back, redefine your problem. So it happens, which is perfectly all right. But you would in that process know that how to move your needle to the next one, which is innovative, and novelty is along that way. So I want to connect with what is there in today's real world thing. And I want to give you an example of how I look at problems and look at saying that, hey, these are some of the unique ones that are available, and how you can actually make it relevant to the product or something that you work. And then from there, look at how to create either your patents, or look at how to put it in the product that really makes a difference, right? So here is from the today's world, as I said, you would go back and look at all the kind of the LLMs that are very famous in published. You will see that almost like 8-9 years back is when your first LLMs started coming. And then you will see that's like today, if I look at it, literally every week there is a LLM that is getting published. At least the number of that, the last few versions of it are getting published quite frequently in today's thing, right? But that is from the fundamental research. Like people are moving in terms of, how do I increase the natural language interpretations, how I can semantically search it, how can I build better search models, how can I find more relevancy, all that kind of things are problems that are being addressed. But on the right hand side, I think there's a gamut of applications that are being developed, and all these applications you will see are relevant to the corporates which are looking at using these LLMs in their day-to-day thing, right? Like, say for instance, some of these things like chatbots, customer supports, text to speech, speech recognition, question and answering, that is a knowledge base kind of a thing. Code completion is yet another domain. So you will see that the whole effort of spending 10 to 15 years of effort in bringing this large language models, at that point of time perhaps they may have not explored all the kind of possibilities of applying that into the real world. But when the models have become applied and the nature of uses on the right hand side naturally makes it very successful combinations of how things can become in reality. Now, the other question people typically ask is, hey, are all researches going to lead to this kind of an effort, right? Again, that's again a magic question that if I'd known that 10 years back, that my ideas would be coming to a stage now, which is thing. Again, the question answer for that thing is, it is not something that you would know upfront that it is going to be. But again, you are setting certain traits, you are taking a bet on your thoughts, bet on your understanding of the state of the art, bet on your technology contributions to that thing. You're looking at, hey, this is naturally what people are looking at, and moving that needle again is something which would set the direction for you, and eventually you would see that when it comes out as a research output, the applications of that will be superseding. Now, the other way to look at it is, has all the research that has been done in the world has contributed to this? No, right? I mean, probably about less than 2% of the research is what the numbers say that actually leads into these kind of things. But so what happens to the 98%? Is that not an important thing? The answer to that is that 98% contributes to the 2% of the the work that actually leads to the work. So all the work that is being done in the research in some form moves the needle towards the right directions. So with that belief, I think we should all look at where you want to place your bets, either in your foundational stuff or towards the applied. Wherever you think is your curiosity and your goals that you wanted to define for yourself, I think you should put your best bet into those buckets. None of them are lower, none of them are higher in that thing. And some might require certain skills to do it, some might require a different kind of skills. Like, say, for instance, being an entrepreneur requires a whole set of skills, not just being a research person. You may also have to sell your ideas, you may have to connect with the network, with the people, you may have to bring in the right funding for it, more than just doing the research part of it, right? Whereas on the left hand side, while you're doing a deep research into it, requires that you develop your skills exceptionally well in domains where you can actually go ahead and make that difference in terms of moving that spectrum or that domain slightly higher than what it is available today. So each of them have their own challenges, each of them are complementary to each other, and in my opinion, I think whichever is raising the curiosity to you and where you want to develop your skills is where you want to place your bets, and then move ahead in picking up either a fundamental research or your applied research in that spectrum. Okay, so with that, I would actually give you a couple of examples how I look at problems, and what are those kind of things where you find um, move things towards novelty, and then you apply it into a product, right? So that is also a success factor. It's just that the product is not yours, but the product belongs to the organization that funds your research, in a way contributing essentially to the success of that product for which you're looking at, right? So probably I'll pick up a couple of examples and I'm going to show you how you could do that. My own thing is not to tell you that, hey, these are all great things that is available out there, but I wanted to tell you the process by which you can do it, so that when you ask that question, hey, and there are many people who come and ask me, even in my office today, how do I write patents, or how do I find that it is a good idea, and how do I evaluate my idea? Is that even worth patenting? So those kind of questions is what I thought I will actually run through a couple of examples and show you that process, and eventually you could use that process in your ideas or in your things, and see if you can make a successful innovation in the space where you're working. Okay, let me start with this, right? So how do we come up with an idea? That's like the Uber question that everybody asks and looks at it. So, it could be any of these criteria that leads to an idea. One is you have a very deep understanding of the problem and you have an application on which you wanted to apply. and you may have to look at, hey, this is not directly applicable, but I need to adopt this solution by changing certain things and apply it on that problem, right? So that is a gap of what is readily available today to what is required, and that gap can become an idea for you. That's one way to look at it. Okay, so you could have, like, say for instance, let's take Ramya's case itself, because we have seen that presentation. So that robotics existed, and there that the autism existed, but between these two things, to address that thing, there is a gap that was identified, right? So in one of the examples, like what we have done, the evolution of the new area called SDN, so the software defined networking, when it came into the thing, it allowed you to basically control the outputs, right? Because earlier it was actually done within a hardware structure, but now the software can tell which port you can redirect your network outputs. So the definition of the new thing that has come, that is with the software defined network, you wanted to look at how the flows can be compacted, entries can be compacted, and how an existing thing called a TCAM be used for speed routing with SDNs, right? So the process how we started is to look at this. Hey, the SDNs have come. SDNs have this problem in that there is no ready solution available to do it. Can we look at how we can address it? You could come up with hundreds of ideas to solve the problem. But the one that will stand unique is the one that doesn't exist today, and that is where you will go and propose your idea. So your first thing is to look at what is the problem that you wanted to solve, and is there a ready solution available to that, right? And how do you identify the ready solution? The only way to do it is you should be a good reader. You should understand that there is a science coming from academia. There is good amount of corporates working on those things, which they write blogs, they write articles, they publish white papers. So you need to know that. And then there is also these technology forums, like all the kind of seminars, the IEEEs, the ACMs, where you get to know all these things. So you should be on top of state of art. The first thing is you should know what's happening around in that area. Unless you know that, you would never know that you are actually moving your needles above them, or you're still below that, right? So you need to be on top of it. So once you have that, I think it is very easy to identify an idea. The second thing is this idea worth looking at it, right? So the first thing that would come is, if you have a product that is readily using that idea, that's your best bet to say that thing, hey, I had an idea, this idea addresses the gap, and that gap is coming from the product that I'm looking at, and it would be directly applicable on top of it. So I think if you have these three elements, that is the gap, the idea that will fill the thing, and the one that you wanted to apply, it is a clear case that you could actually go ahead and look at an idea that is worth patenting, worth putting it in a product which is not available there. And then you'll have all kinds of techniques to go ahead and write your patents and things like this, which we may not look at it. But look at always opportunities to question that thing, why certain things exist in that form. That why question would give you an answer. It could be something else, and that something else is a gap for you to look at how you can bring in an idea, and then you can put it into this thing. So keep looking for the products, keep asking these questions why, keep looking at the current technology, be always on top of things. And you should know that, hey, even if you have a gap, is there a solution that exists today that can be directly applied, or can I add an extra component to that solution which can apply to it? If your answer is yes, which doesn't exist, that's a clear case for you for an innovation to be there, right? So look out for those spots, and once you have those spots, I think you should be able to quickly fill in, and you should be able to go ahead and say that, hey, I'm addressing a need in that product, and here is a new idea which doesn't exist, and this will solve the problem to a greater extent. So I think that's the process you should follow. And some of these things what we have done is in the similar fashion. And I mean, all these things are available online, so I'm not going to go again and explain all the patents and stuff like that. It's available online. You could just have a look at those kind of things, what made the difference. In fact, certain things like utility scorings in social networks were part of put into some of the products. There was an Watson marketing platform into which this went into. So you have to look at those products and look at, hey, what's a gap here and what can I put into this thing? And it is by a skill. I mean, you would not get it on day one, day two. It takes time to understand how to identify that gap, but you need to consistently keep working on it, and at some point of time you will see that you will be able to identify the gaps easily and merge and marry an existing technology with new components to it to address that gap. Okay, so keep looking for those spots, keep looking for those gaps, keep looking and asking questions why, keep reading all the things, attend as much events as possible where you will get the technical skills, and I'm sure you'll be able to find the sweet spot to look out for patents or innovations which would make an impact in the product. So with that, I'll put a full stop. Probably I went a little faster, but I'll take a stop, and if there's any questions for me, I can answer those, and otherwise we can give it back to the host.
Thank you so much, Kala. This was really, again, extremely interesting and inspiring. And like I said, I think between the two of you, we covered two gamuts of research itself. So thank you so much. And without further ado, because we have very little time, we get to the fireside chat. So maybe I'll start with the very first question in terms of how did you identify your research area, your PhD topics? So maybe Ramya, you can start first and talk about why this particular topic interested you, and post that maybe Kala, you can chime in as well.
So, for me, so every time when somebody asks me, why did you get into, the disability sector? Do you have somebody that you know personally who's gone through that? Genuinely, the only answer I keep telling is, for me, this was a call. Genuinely, this was a call. Some kind of a weird intervention. I think that the universe kind of wanted me to work on this because I did my master's in robotics. So post that, I started applying for my PhD in different universities. Somehow I randomly started getting in touch with a lot of people from an autism background. It would be in random places, very, very unlikely places where you would actually make friends, like in a market, in a ballroom dance a workshop, in a train, and all of these places I kept running into people. And weirdly, what I did was we had a off the shelf a couple of robots that I had developed in my masters. So I went and I gave this to one of the schools to see if the children would love to work with this. This was way before, like a month or so before even I decided that I was going to join PhD in Shastra. So it's got nothing to do with that at all. So we went over and then I gave this device, and we saw a couple of them being interested. The rest of the students were a little off. But then that was behind my head. It was back of my head, and I continued with my life. I went and joined Shastra. For some reason, I did come up with a couple of other projects that I wanted to work on, and it so happened that I had told this to my guide, how about the disability sector? It so happened that he's been looking to work in the disability sector for 4 years at that point of time. So that's when we decided, okay, autism or the disability sector is going to be the area, but how we are going to use robotics is what we need to figure out. So I genuinely decided the topic after I went through, like, I lost count of the number of papers that we go through for PhD, right? Because the entire first 6 months to a year is just pure literature review. So what happens is, so we ended up working on that. When I found the gap, that is where it changed for me, right? Forget the Nemea part. Why I got into research was when I found the gap. When I knew that robotics could be used, and that was my expertise, and I could put my expertise to some good use, is when I realized, okay, next 5 years, if I'm going to spend every single minute on something, this should be the idea. So when I found the gap that robotics could be used for children with autism, and that it can be used in the psychomotor skill part, is where it changed for me. So that was the part where we decided this is what I'm going to work on.
Kala, would you like to take this question as
Yeah, so I'll just chime in with just two or three more points to what Ramya has talked about. I think there are three phases, right? I think when you do your BTech, you're more um, developing your logical skills. In your MTech, you develop your analytical skills, and in your PhD, you develop your design skills, right? So that differentiation is very key and understanding for me. And when I started with the PhD, I think there are a couple of levers that sets your triggers. One of them is at that point of time, there's always a summer for one of the key areas. Like when I started, it was actually networking that was very peak, and there was a lot of interest, a lot of protocols coming out, a lot of RFPs coming up, a lot of systems components were being developed for it, and there was a lot of in in the industry connects, as well as the academic people working on it. So for me, that naturally took a precedence in terms of, hey, there is a lot of industry requirements on top of it, as well as there was good amount of academic churn out coming out on the networking topics, right, in terms of the papers or all those kind of things coming from this thing. And of course, there's a great set of professors who also influence you in terms of what directions you want to do, and you should be fortunate enough to find and seek those professors to basically take advice from what makes your next thing. So to me, these are some of the factors, and it's just not individual one factor that contributes. So I think what drives at that point of time from the industry, from the requirements, the needs, I think networking was one of those hotspots at that point of time. And definitely taking the guidance from many people who are predecessors to it would get you some ideas about where to start from.
So thank you so much. And it's so true, right? A lot of times your research could be something that is a personal interest, but it could also come from the industry or a market pull. So, for example, a lot of PhDs now are in the space of AI, and a few years earlier it was blockchain and so on. So there are trends that drive such research, but there is also a person calling sometimes where you just feel that this is what you need to do. For example, in my case, I think it was energy. Everywhere I saw it was energy, 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 which is why smart grids was the way for me. We have a question from the audience. It says, if I have an idea, but I'm afraid to implement it because it was not done by anyone else, what would you suggest for me to do to overcome this fear and proceed in my research? And I think, again, all of us have faced challenges. So I think both of you, if you can chime in terms of what it is that you did and what would you recommend to Leisha? Yeah.
So probably I can pick up, but my only question is, what is the fear in implementing it? Just go ahead and implement it, right? Because you're in a phase where there is time and there is energy that you can spend in terms of implementing it and seeing that whether it works or it doesn't work. It is perfectly all right that it doesn't work, and it is very important that it doesn't work also for the first time, because I think when it works, you don't learn anything at all. Absolutely. You just get that confidence that, hey, I know and I have done something, right? But when it doesn't work is when you actually learn a lot of things that, hey, this is what is a mistake in this is how I should change. And if you're in the earlier PhDs or in the PhDs, that's the right time to fail multiple times. And for all practical purposes, whoever came from at least the institute where I learned, they had at least one or two failures, and I'm sure Kumudini also had one or two before she could do it. So my thing is, I mean, why fear, right? I mean, there is nobody's having a thread around your. It's not like a news or something and saying that, hey, if you fail, I'm going to do something about it. I think you just have to come out of that fear saying that it's perfectly all right to fail. Let me implement it. You have the time, you have the energy. I think you should just go ahead and do it. Nobody will come and say anything. And for all practical purposes, after doing all these things, academic thing, maybe I'll just give one example, Kumudri, maybe before I pass on to Ramya. See, I have actually got in my first year of Pilani, even E grades. Okay, I mean, I'm not sure whether it's great to have those grades or not, but it is what it is, right? But if I come today and look at that journey and look at how I've evolved myself to get those kind of come over it, it's because of those failures is what you think that, hey, you need to put in more effort, maybe you have to put in the right direction, and then you overcome that and then you do it. So I think that if the fear is just failure, then I think you're absolutely okay to have that fear, but try it out. It's okay to do that.
I definitely agree with Kala. I think PhD is the time where you literally can try whatever you want, right? Because I understand the fear, because when I started my PhD, I had the same thing, because not many people were working in this area. Not many people were using robotics to train children with autism. So it was completely brand new. And you need it for psychomotor skills, so even more or less. So when this happened, when I approached my guide, and the first thing that he told me was that, because when I developed the first prototype, I think I started the therapy, and I didn't sleep for 6 days straight. Every day, every night, I'll be like, what if this fails? What if this fails? And the thing that my therapist, I mean, my guide, my supervisor told me was that even if you fail, that is proving that this system is not going to work for certain set of application. That is still a research all by itself. That is still a finding that is going to help so many other people to not do the same thing that you did, right? That's how we all end up learning. We go through papers, we understand from everybody else's experience to see what can be done, what should be avoided, and how well we can operate the way. So I suggest, I understand the fear. I completely empathize with you, because I know I've been there. I haven't slept for days until my system started working. And I've always gone to my guy telling, what if after 1.5 years you suddenly tell me this whole thing is not going to work, and I have to rechange my entire hypothesis based on the results that I am getting? Then it's still worth that time. That's what I want you to know. It is definitely worth that time. The amount of learning that you end up, it's a learning for a lifetime, right? Because this is it's like a muscle memory. After a point of time, what happens is these learnings, that the way you fail, or you do it right, whatever it is, this is going to mold every way that you take anything forward, be it any other research later on, or even if it's going to be work or any decisions in life. All of this learning is what is going to mold. So I think you should definitely give it a shot, and PhD is the exact place where you can give all this a shot.
Ah, so maybe to summarize it and also give another example is like, for example, when Edison was asked that, you failed so many times, and he said, I found maybe 999 ways a light bulb will not work. So rather than looking at failure as something that didn't go right or something is wrong with you, I think failure is about believing that, okay, something doesn't work. So I've proven one way that this doesn't work. I have 10,000 million ways to make it work. And at the end of the day, a PhD is a sandbox. It's also helping you grow as an individual as well. And so maybe to take this further, research is a long drawn process. I think both of you highlighted the fact that it does take a lot of time. Fundamental research even longer, and a lot of times you may not even see the result in your lifetime. So why take it up? I mean, what are you supposed to do to build that inner strength and drive that is so necessary to be in research? And what is your experience? And what would you like to share with the researchers? Maybe Ramya, you can go first, and then we can get Kala on board as well.
Um, so the question is why research is important and how do you get the strength? Okay. I'll tell you how testing my PhD was. I don't know how much I have shared with Kumudini ma'am, but literally, when people say PhD, everybody has a different challenges and hardships with PhD. So I'll tell you what happened in mine. So 4 years of work is done. I've written 350 pages of my PhD thesis, ready, good to go. Monday, I'm supposed to submit my final thesis. Saturday, I end up in a fire accident, to an extent where I was in the ventilator for 10 days. I lost pulse twice. They had declared me dead twice. And to top all of this, I lost my 4 years of work in that fire. The laptop, only the frame was there. I could put my hand through it. So that was the situation of the house when the entire thing burned down. So my 355 pages of thesis became 25 pages, and that was just the contents at the start. So 4 years of my work completely, I had nothing to tell but a set of pages of contents to show for. And here I had a very clear decision to take. I can either give up, tell, you know what, I can't do this anymore, because sitting and writing a thesis all over again that you just finished is the most painful thing in the world, right? I lost 1,900 graphs because I was working with children with disabilities. So we had to, have all graphical demonstrations of it. It was in the bag that got burnt. So even the backup hard disk that was there got burnt in that fire. But I had to bring the strength in myself because I have to get better. But I still have a reason to get better for, because I need to get back and make sure that 4 years of work that I put in doesn't go to waste, right? Let alone going through it 4 years. And then now there is a complete block where you have to repeat most of it again is a very, very challenging time. That level of strength, I didn't. I'll be super honest. One of the biggest reasons why I was able to get back to it was because of one phone call that came to me. So I'd worked with several children in a school called Asha in Bangalore, and the day I got discharged from the hospital back home, I lost my voice for about a year, no voice at all, because due to carbon monoxide inhalation. So I had just randomly, it's been a year since I worked with them, and then I randomly get a call from the school, and one teacher calls up. I cut the call. I message her telling, "Ma'am, I've lost my voice. I can't talk. So can you message whatever it is? I just got discharged. This had happened." She picked up. She called me up again, and she said, "Ramya, just listen to me. You don't have to talk anything back." The child that I worked with, he at that point of time, he was about 2.5 years old, and he was, uh, with the diagnosis, he had literally next to zero psychomotor skills. And during the training process, he ended up learning close to 75% of the different skills that we were teaching. And she had called me to tell me that 1 year later, the child still remembered every single skill that he learned, and he was able to do that in everyday life right now. That phone call genuinely changed everything for me, because I knew these systems were going to work. And if I was put in such a difficult challenge, I can't avoid this, right? Now it's happened. I can't do anything. And the only way that these systems are going to see the light of day is if I get back on the saddle, start working, get everything back, and finish my PhD. And that was a very conscious decision I took, knowing how difficult it was going to be. So, strength, most of the time, at least for me in my journey, has always been something that I had to fight for. It was something that I had to bring from within myself, because there was a reason for me to do, and because I wanted to do it more than anything else. I still know a lot of relatives came over and said, "Oh, don't strain yourself, don't do this anymore. It's okay if it's just PhD." It's not just PhD for me. It's been 4 years of my life and millions of children life in the future, and that's not something that I would have taken lightly. So that's when I got back, finished everything, resubmitted my thesis, and then finally got my PhD. So strength for me, I personally derive it from within yourself, right? That's all I would say, especially PhD. It's very testing.
Thank you so much for sharing something so, profoundly, I think, honest. And I mean, it's really amazing. Thank you so much. And Kala, would you like to also share your experience, please?
Yeah, I think for it's similar experience, not in terms of this thing, but I think the emotions what flows through the PhD, I think is similar for most of the thing. I think a couple of things. I think it will test you in terms of tenacity, right? You just don't want to quit at any point because you have consciously taken the decision that you want to be part of it. So when you take your PhD, you don't think that, hey, in 1 year I'll quit, in half year you don't have the thought process when you sign up for your PhD. So 6 months after you do the PhD, if you quit, you think yourself as a loser, and you don't want to be a loser, right? I mean, who would on earth want to be a loser in your early phase, like in your 22, 24, it's like, hey, I lost something, right? And that is a bigger thing for you. So you would build your tenacity. You wanted to go through that phase, and then you will do it. The second thing is you will learn a lot more patience. You should be patient with yourself, with your professor, with your people, because when you publish, somebody else would have published the same thing and they will say this is related to that. So you better be patient with what's happening around. and there's always a second chance that is definitely available for you to come. So I think tenacity, patience, second chance, all these things are life lessons, what you will learn. So PhD is only a training process. It is not your life at the end of the day. So the thing is, have you done your trainings well, right? That's the question that you should ask, and continue to look at your curiosity and keep moving on those directions. That's the piece of advice.
Thank you so much. And so important, right? Tenacity, patience. And also, I think it is personally, again, my PhD journey, I always see it as a life lesson, and it's more, it helped me grow as an individual and as a person. And I think we also develop empathy. A lot of things happen. So yes, I think it's a training ground for a lot more. And I think that's also the reason why it's called a PhD. It's a doctor in philosophy and not necessarily in your area of expertise, so to speak.
Yes.
Uh, Maybe we have very little time, so I have just two questions very quickly. Share some of the challenges you faced during your entrepreneurial journey as well. And for Kala, it is like, translational research to corporate product making. So, what are those important steps that you need to take care of, and what are those, in the pipeline? What are those things that you need to be aware of? And also, maybe if you can end with a few words in terms of your inputs or your key suggestions or advice to the people who are listening to you today. Kala, do you want to go first, and then we will also
Sure.
ask Ramya?
Sure, I can. So I think for your thing, I think first is you should believe in the idea first yourself, right? I mean, you should not be in a quasi state that, hey, I'm producing idea for the sake of producing. That I think should not be the thing. So first believe in the idea that you do, irrespective of wherever you are, whether it is your applied thing or whether it is in the corporate, that stands the same. Second thing is take people along, right? Because in the corporate, you need to be with the people. It's not a solo game that you can play. You need the people to say that yes, this is an idea which probably is good for our products, and the products would stand out if we actually put it in that thing. So you have to work along with the people, and it would never be a solo game in the corporate. So your ideas you should be willing to share with people. You should be people will play the devil's advocates. The first question they people ask you is, hey, why this idea, why that idea, why do you need this, we don't need this, we are happy with what we have, right? So you need to convince all the things, take the people along, and I'm sure at some point of time they'll turn around and they'll start helping you push your ideas into products. Okay, so you should grow with that mindset, that it's not a solo game and it's not individuals who would do it, should be a group that does and help you in doing it. The third thing is, always strive to be on top of state of art, right? That is very critical. If you're not able to convince people inside by doing inside work, the only thing that can help you is to bring the outside perspective, like, hey, look at the world, look at how it is moving, why are we not doing it, right? That perspective would definitely help you, and for that you should be on top of things what you're happening. So my two things is, never stop reading, never stop listening, never stop attending events where you would gain knowledge. Develop your skills always, always. Either whether your career is going up or low, I think your skills should always go up from what it is. That's my small advice to all of you.
Thank you so much. And Ramya?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we had when we were getting to the market was acceptance, right? Like what Kalam ma'am had just said, uh, for you to convince them, you need that one thing that's going to change their mind, right? The first time I went and spoke to a lot of occupational therapists asking, would they be interested to use devices like that? Outrightly, I mean, there are a few people who are very, very welcoming. That's a different story. But outrightly, the majority of the people were like, we are already using these stuff, right? It is already serving the purpose. Why change something? Why are you disrupting something that does not need to happen? But you know what? The change that we were able to bring about is not something, even if you improvise on the regular design, will it work, right? So this, that idea that you have, if you need to convince somebody, it should be disruptive. It should be able to give that one or two differences that no other device can give. I think that is very, very important. The way you're going to convince them is those points are the ones that you're going to take care. So acceptance will definitely be a problem, whatever idea that you have in whichever area that you have, because people usually don't like change, right? So I know how initially, when Apple came in and all of that, right? Like when the iPods came over, when they started becoming like a touch screen everywhere, when there was a button phone and then a touch, everywhere it was a one disruptive product that changed everything. And for people, he was absolutely welcoming about it. Not everybody would be like, oh, we are open to changes all the time. So you should have that one difference that would make yours stand out. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we've had. Acceptance, and of course, then the rest is very technical. So let's not go into it. Maybe for another day. Uh, Advice, what I would say is never give up. It's a long haul, especially when you are in a sector like I am. It's a long haul, because every venture capitalist or anybody investor, anybody who wants to come in, they only look at quick exits. Like, they'll be like, okay, 3 years, what's your exit strategy? Disability sector doesn't work like that. An actual research to a product which has substantial data does not happen overnight. Does not happen overnight. So never, ever, ever give up. However stressful it is, I know it can be very, very hard. However stressful it is, never give up. And I would definitely re-emphasize the fact what Kala ma'am said. Please keep updating yourself. Learn something every single day. Make it a point that you constantly keep upscaling, and you're making sure that your skill is better. Whatever you want to learn, whatever you want to, whichever area you are in. I think that is very, very important. I definitely agree with ma'am as to the reading part of it as well, because it helps a lot. It helps you not only understand what everything, I mean, how everything else is, but it also helps you to use those information to convince to get your product to the market. That's very, very important. You kind of will understand how to tweak your product accordingly. You would understand where all you can actually take your product to. So your market strategy, everything will change depending on the amount of information that you actually learn. So yes, and again, I would emphasize the fact that never give up, believe in yourself. Anybody can do anything that they put their mind to, however hard or easy it is, but you can. So just don't give up, and always surround yourself with a good support system. That is very, very helpful. Very helpful. You need to have supportive partners, you need to have supportive family, a structure, because everything will be testing you at every point of time. And I think the support system is very important. I think I will
So
leave you there.
yeah, thank you so much. And yes, I think it is not a solo journey, as Kala mentioned, and it is something that does require a lot of patience, and change is never easy. And a lot of times, the tenacity that you build, or the endurance that you build, and the perseverance that you have, that you are on a journey that, brings about change. And it's also about creating social impact, no matter how small your research is or how big your research is. And like Kala mentioned earlier, 98% of the research doesn't necessarily show you those results, but it is that 98% that causes the 2% to disrupt the market, right? And yes, creating support systems and having somebody believe in you or believing in yourself, I think that goes a long way as well. So thank you so much, both Kala and Ramya. You've been an amazing, amazing set of experts, and I think I really had an enjoyable time, and I learned a lot as well. So I think this was, I hope the audience also felt the same way. And thank you so much for providing your time. I know it's been a busy schedule, and but all the very best for your work as well. And I hope you continue to grow and change the world that you have been doing. So thank you all to the audience as well. I do invite you to be a part of IEEE and our activities as well. I also wish that you could join Women in Engineering as well if you're not members of IEEE. So thanks once again. Wish you all a very good day and a good night. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks,
so much.
Manoj. Thanks, Ramya, for sharing, I mean, the
Thank
platform
you
with
so
you.
much. It
Yeah,
was
let's stay
lovely.
connected.
Yes, absolutely. Please take care.